VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Well, thank you, Mr. Morris, and good to have you with us on Crosstalk today. And we have a very interesting program. A gentleman who's no stranger to us. We'll introduce him in a moment. But many of us have been aware of this issue called Fast and Furious. And as a gun owner myself, and as knowing others, realizing the power and lethal force that is involved in a weapon, only used appropriately or used for hunting or sport. But the issue of turning a whole raft of 1,500 guns loose in a volatile environment into Mexico where the drug lords are running loose, all this decided by high-level officials in our government has certainly raised the ire of citizens and taxpayers across the country. Our guest today is a man who is recognized nationwide, the Executive Director of Gun Owners of America, Larry Pratt. And Larry, it's always a privilege to have you. You're no stranger here.
Well, Vic, it's a privilege to be on your show. Thanks so much.
Well, Larry, we're looking at this Fast and Furious things now. Attorney Eric Holder will appear before the Senate Judiciary Committee tomorrow, and will face some real tough questions from Senator Chuck Grassley, who's been involved in the investigation into the Fast and Furious operation from the very beginning. Larry, before we look at the committee meeting tomorrow, for our listeners who are not aware of the controversy, please give us a quick overview of what is known as Fast and Furious. A lot of people don't know.
Well, it's a program that was conceived at a meeting of several different agencies. The ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, was picked to be the point of the spear, but other justice and homeland security agencies were also part of it and cooperating with it. The idea, we now know, well, first of all, what it's not. What the administration says and what the few mainline, or my preference would be Democrat media coverage of it, was that it was a gun sting operation gone bad. They were trying to capture the bad guys when they were making illegal transactions, and these things just got out of our hands.
Well, in simple language, if I understand correctly, the idea was to bring these guns down, sell them, somebody who didn't look like he was connected with the government, selling the guns to criminals. And then hopefully, no GPS equipment involved. They're supposed to follow these guns, find out where they go so they can define where the nests of these vipers were.
That's the official narrative, and you have to wonder, so that was the plan. Well, then why weren't the Mexicans alerted so when the gun crossed the border, they could track it? One of the whistleblower agents explained how he tried to produce a GPS device implanted in one or two of the rifles involved, and he did succeed in implanting it, but the battery wore out before the gun was able to be traced anywhere. So the simple fact is there was no provision to track those guns once they crossed the border, nor did they want any provision for it. They wanted the guns in there. We know from a couple of documents that have been introduced into Representative Darrell Iss's Oversight Committee hearing record that briefings were being given to the acting director, I should say, at the time, Kenneth Melson of the ATF, and other of his high officials, weekly briefings which were showing an uptick in Mexican violent crime, meaning people getting killed. This was cool. And another document, an email from a member of the National Security Council, Kenneth O'Reilly, who's been conveniently reassigned to Baghdad. This is a man who's trained in Latin American expertise, and so, of course, it makes sense to send him over to Baghdad. What it really makes sense is that they've removed him from easy access to Mr. Iss's subpoenas, but he was regularly in contact with the field director, the head of the ATF office in Phoenix, Bill Newell, asking one time, "Hey, have any of our Fast and Furious guns turned up in crimes? We'd like to use that as a springboard for gun control." That's what this whole thing was all about. And it was further, we suppose that there was further desire to do this, not only because they're rather rabid in their opposition to the Second Amendment in this administration, but they were really seeking to change the debate in the whole gun control debate, and they didn't care that people, that they didn't know who, but they knew that people were doubtless going to die. But hey, they're only little brown people down there in Mexico.
Yeah.
Here. So.
Well, what's a life worth when you're working a political plan?
Yeah, that's exactly what their actions demonstrate. And they have been denying it, but their denials are increasingly untenable because more and more documents keep coming out. And the flames are getting higher and higher. When we found out that this National Security Council member, advisor, was in communication, that means that the White House knew about it, and it gets more and more difficult to believe that the president didn't find out about it until it was public, and somehow from timelines that got crossed from these lying guys in the administration, the bloggers that have been breaking this, primarily Mike Vanderboe and also David Codria, have found that the admissions of when the president knew about it was actually before Holder admits that he knew about it.
Yeah.
Huh?
Sure. Well, what's interesting, Larry, because we're hearing about people, they're demanding documentation from the White House. In fact, even going to the place of subpoena of information on various issues in the White House, demanding to know it, and the White House is stonewalling them.
That's one way that they are not transparent, the most transparent administration ever. But also, Darrell Issa, Chairman Issa, very dramatically began his interrogation of Assistant Attorney General Lanny Breuer when Breuer had, in his opening statement, said how much they wanted to cooperate, they want to cooperate, they want to cooperate. I mean, for 10 minutes, that's basically all he said. And so Issa held up a sheet of paper that was entirely blackened out.
Yeah.
And not thank you, Mr. Breuer, for coming to testify. And he had been subpoenaed and he'd been put under oath. Not any greeting of any sort, but lifting up this blackened sheet. You talk about cooperation when you've sent us hundreds of pages like this?
Redacted completely.
Completely. There was only a little white margin around the borders of the page, as if they might have purchased a stamp just smaller than an 8.5 by 11 and completely whacked out all these pages. You got to laugh, but
well,
really,
and then if they can't do it that way, they scream executive privilege.
Right, but that's supposed to pertain only to the president, and that doesn't work so well for other folks.
It didn't work. It didn't work for Nixon, that's for sure.
No, and Nixon wasn't trying to cover up a couple of hundred bodies.
Yeah, all right.
So, I mean, what Nixon did was wrong, but he didn't get involved until the cover-up, and I'm quite willing to believe, and until somebody finds otherwise, I would be shocked if the president did know about this thing as it was underway. Why would they want to tell him? They were trying to keep this thing quiet, and a lot of the agency, most of the agents in the ATF had no idea, and the ones that did down on the ground were the ones that were objecting to it, and the ones that have now blown the whistle. And I must say, even though I don't think there should be that agency, I don't think it's constitutional, I can only salute men who are brave enough to come forth, blow the whistle when something was criminal in their superiors' orders, and take the risk of being reassigned, of being forced to move to another city, all kinds. Some of these guys, I've read that John Dotson, I believe it is, the first one that we heard from on CBS News' coverage, when he goes to the range, he makes sure that when he's there, he's the only one there because he doesn't want to have any accident occur behind his back, so to speak. So there's a lot of bad blood that these whistleblowers have violated the code, the omerta that these guys seem to have. Our guys can do no wrong. Law enforcement forever and ever. Don't look into anything here, folks. Just keep on moving.
Now, Larry, Attorney General Eric Holder has testified previously before the House committee. What will be different about this Senate hearing tomorrow?
Well, he'll get softball questions from Democrat Chairman Leahy. But he's going to get a haircut, I think, from Senator Grassley. Grassley has made some of his minority staff on that Judiciary Committee available to work with Darrell Iss's committee staff as they investigate. They've been to Arizona, they've been to Mexico. There's been a lot of very thorough work, and I believe both of these men understand that they can't rush this. They can't make one mistake, or the media will just make that the entire issue and forget about all the dead people. Well, you said something, and it was actually another day, or it was three rifles instead of two. It'd be something majoring in minors, but when they want to do something like that, they go off and do it. So I am very sure that we're going to see a well-prepared Grassley, who is an attorney. I don't know if he's ever been a prosecutor, but he's going to have his questions lined up. And then next month, it's back to the House, and Ison's going to have another hearing. And not only is Issa very sharp in the questioning, but he's got two former prosecutors who have lots of experience, and they really strutted their stuff on earlier occasions. If we have time, I'd like to just Issa had asked Newell. No, one of the other members had asked Newell, the head of the project in Phoenix, had he ever discussed the project, the Fast and Furious, with O'Reilly in the White House, because they knew that there were a lot of email that had been made available, and his answer was, you could almost see the wheels turning as he's answering, well, I can't say that I recall us ever having specifically discussed Fast and Furious. And Issa jumped in, even though I think the guy was a lawyer, Representative Labrador from Idaho, that was talking, and he said, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to ask the witness to repeat that last answer without the word specific in it. Well, yeah, I'm sure we did. Yeah.
This business of parsing words, and some of these guys are attorneys that know how to bend the truth. There are a lot of people who are gifted in the field of eloquence and can literally take words and make one thing seem like another. Yep. Make it totally confusing, totally out of bounds. Larry, we're going to be right back in 60 seconds, so stay with us. Folks, we'll be right back. Larry Pratt, our guest today. We're talking about Fast and Furious, and Eric Holder. We'll be back in a moment.
Back to Genesis with creation researcher Dr. John Morris of the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, is there anything new in the search for Noah's Ark?
Well, yes, indeed, Chris. Some new things have begun to happen. Actually, nothing much has happened in the search for Noah's Ark since about 1990 when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. That war actually shut down the whole Middle East, and very few people have even been to Mount Ararat since then, and nothing really of significance has transpired. But now that the region has stabilized somewhat, the Turks are inclined to allow perhaps 2 expeditions to search for the Ark. Now, I'm not involved in either of these expeditions, although I am very much in contact with them both, lending my expertise from my many years of experience in the search for Noah's Ark. There are also some new satellite photographs that have been taken of Mount Ararat which show an object which definitely needs to be checked out. I'm praying that the Ark of Noah will be revealed. It will give us great insight into the way things were back in Genesis.
Please email us at genesis@icr.org.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, where we're talking with Larry Pratt, who is the Executive Director of Gun Owners of America. And we have all been watching as we've been seeing this Fast and Furious thing literally moving slowly ahead, not fast and furious, but slowly. But there's a day of reckoning coming here, and this issue of the guns that were given, the plan going south, people dying, and nobody seems to want to take responsibility for it. Well, Larry's with us, and Larry, as we're back here, I had a question to ask you regarding the situation with Eric Holder. There are people that are multiple congressmen who've called for his resignation, and I know you probably got the word on that thing.
The number was a handful just late last week. Now it's already over 35, and I'm sure as we speak, names may well be added to the list. These are all members of the House of Representatives so far. We'd like to see some senators get on board with this, too. I'm not sure that we're going to see Holder resign, not until there has been further committee opportunity to pull back some of the cover that they're trying to, the cover up that they're trying to contain this crisis with. They're getting a lot of help from the mainstream, but it's not really enough. If people don't watch CBS, that's good, but there's a wonderful investigative reporter that just keeps chipping away at this. Cheryl Atkinson I think I might have been the first to break it on national television with Megyn Kelly on Fox. And the next day, Cheryl began a series of stories interviewing a lot of the whistleblowers and other people involved. And in fact, if you want to see what she's been doing, because it's really impressive, go to gunowners.org, and we've got a link right to her page at CBS News, and you can see what she's been doing. I've had lunch with her, and I still couldn't tell you what her politics are. She's just a professional reporter, and an investigative one, and obviously a good one. And now that she's out front on this, she gets information sent to her over the transom, as do the bloggers that actually hooked her up to the story in the very beginning. They approached a number of people in the media, and they could see that they were just interested in taking and running the story without regard to those who had come forth that still weren't ready to be public. And Cheryl Atkinson, because she's a professional, understood the need for respecting those people's privacy, and only until, if ever, they have been willing to come forth publicly has she done anything to indicate who they are. And so that's why the story is able to keep developing. The two bloggers, Cheryl Atkinson, and for some time now, William LaJeunesse, the West Coast office of Fox in Los Angeles, has also been on this. And he's gone into Mexico, and he's gone into Arizona with his camera, and has been presenting a steady stream as well. So if you know where to look, you can see a ton of information on this.
Well, Larry, we're going to go back because we do have the sound clip up here of Grassley interviewing Assistant Attorney General Lanny Breuer. And we're going to hear how the response on this, and we've got it queued up. So let's give it a listen here, and this, I think, is very revealing.
February the 4th, 2011, the department sent me a letter also assuring me that allegations of gun walking were untrue. It reads, quote, ATF makes every effort to interdict weapons that have been purchased illegally and prevent their transportation to Mexico, end of quote. That statement is absolutely false, and you admitted as much last night that you knew by April 2010 that ATF walked guns in Operation Wide Receiver. That's correct, yes?
Yes, Senator.
That's all I need to know, if that's correct. Did you review that letter before it was sent to me?
So, Senator, again, I just want to be clear that, as I told you a moment ago, I regret that in April of 2010 that I did not draw the connection between Wide Receiver and Fast and Furious. And moreover, I regret that even in earlier this year that I didn't draw that connection. In direct answer to your question, Senator, I cannot say for sure whether I saw a draft of the letter that was sent to you. What I can tell you, Senator, is at that time I was in Mexico dealing with the very real issues that we're also committed to. But I also regret, as I've said, that I didn't draw that connection earlier.
After learning of gun walking and wide receiver, did you ever inform the Attorney General Holder or Deputy Attorney General about it, and if so, when, and if not, why not?
Senator, I can't be more clear. I've said to you, and I will continue to, I regret the fact that in April of 2010 I did not. At the time, I thought that dealing with the leadership of ATF was sufficient and reasonable, and frankly, given the amount of work I do at the time, I thought that that was the appropriate way of dealing with it. But I cannot be more clear that knowing now, if I had known then what I know now, I, of course, would have told the Deputy and the Attorney General.
Would you say that was an admission of saying, whoops, I goofed?
That was the sound of a man who said, I am the one designated to go under the bus, falling on my sword to protect my boss, the Attorney General. And nice try, but I don't think it's going to work. Because, as I mentioned a little bit ago, there's already been observed a conflict in the dates between, the president knew about this before Eric Holder, according to what the bloggers have shown us on when they were making these statements about when they knew what. I can believe it about the president that he didn't know for a good long while, but I sure can't believe about the Attorney General, who, after all, is the top cop. He's in charge of ATF, of FBI, of the people that were kind of in the lead on this whole operation. So, no, I think Mr. Brewer was putting his head in a noose, but he may find that there'll be some other heads in there, too.
Now, Larry, obviously there's always this insulation between top leadership, but what is the position that the White House is taking on this?
Nobody here but us chickens. We really don't know. We found out about it in the press. But again, if you've got a member of the National Security Council in your White House in rather frequent email communication with the guy actually directing the program out in the field, then doesn't he ever say anything to the president? I mean, they brief the president, from what I understand, about every week. We got this thing going that it's probably going to stir up some dust if the Mexicans ever find out about it. So we've been kind of keeping a low profile on old Fast and Furious. One thing that Brewer said that is misleading also is that he tries to make it seem like Fast and Furious is the same as wide receiver. Wide receiver was letting guns walk, but they were making every effort to try to stop them before they got across the border, and when they failed to do it often enough, they simply shut the program down. That was under the Bush administration, so you can see why they're trying to say, well, he did it too. But the truth of the matter is, when they saw that it was an unworkable plan, they said, kill it. But then the Obama administration wasn't trying to stop the guns. They wanted the guns to go in, as I've shown earlier, and that's what they were doing. Some 2,000 that we know of, and those are the ones that have turned up at crime scenes, but they're going to keep turning up at crime scenes, I'm sure, for quite a while.
Now, Larry, in addition to the Senate Judiciary Committee tomorrow, which, by the way, many people could call, even the minority leaders at the Senate, and let them know there are some telephone numbers you can use, and those are very important numbers. We give them out all the time. The phone number, of course, is 202-224-3121 or 202-225-3121. Those are both going to the Capitol switchboard.
Right.
And if you want to even speak to the minority leader at the Senate, the majority leader, I don't think may want to listen to you, but that's a matter of opinion, I guess. But here again, let me give you another number, in fact, one that will help here. The Judiciary Minority or Majority Office. This is the Democratic leadership. Give them a call, and this goes right to them, 202, now this is a new number, 202-224-7703. That's the Judiciary Majority Office, Democratic leadership, 202-224-7703.
And one message that might be conveyed is I would like to ask the majority leader to stop referring to this as a sting gone bad. This is not a justification for gun control. This shows that there were people in the hierarchy, not so much the agents on the ground, but people in the hierarchy of ATF who were deliberately arming criminals. And that's not a sting operation gone bad. So stop referring to it that way. Suck it in, man up, and admit that your favorite gun control agency was involved in a massive conspiracy to commit murder of unknown people.
Now, there's another phone number I'm going to give you. This is the Judiciary Minority Office. That's right, the Minority Office, the Republican leadership. And their number is 202-224-5225. One more time, 202-224-5225. And let them hear your voice today. I mean, they're going to be meet tomorrow. They need to hear somebody in America raising your voice on this issue. And everybody's shrugging their shoulders on this thing. To be honest with you, even the White House, and then the lying, obvious, or the misunderstanding, where even our Attorney General, they asked him when he first heard about it. Remember the foot shuffling when that question was asked, Larry?
It was a lot of shucking and jiving indeed. The best I can recall...
The best I can recall, yeah.
It was probably just a few weeks ago when it got into the press. Well, it actually had been in the press since the end of January.
And they found emails floating all over the place.
All over the place. Briefing records indicating that this was going on with knowledge and malice aforethought.
How long does it take for our government to put somebody out to pasture that is that dishonest?
There's only been one guy resign, and that was the U.S. attorney in Phoenix, a guy by the name of Hurley. He had dumped some information derogatory against folks above him, and so our guess is they forced him out kind of in retaliation for that. Now, he had been involved in the cover-up of a third rifle that had also been found at the scene of the murder scene of Border Patrolman Brian Terry, but they knew that for whatever reason, I'm not clear about, that gun would too easily trace back to their informant, and they wanted to keep their informant in operation, even though their informant was now in the chain of a murder.
Larry, there's another one. While Fast and Furious continues to unsnarl and unfold here, Congress is also being called upon to hold hearings in another border agent situation, Jesus Diaz. He was restraining a smuggler, and he's in jail.
With procedures that are taught in their academy, and the fact that they would put this guy in jail, and I can't remember the specifics, but, what's the name? The two Border Patrolmen that were quite famous, Campion and Ramos, they're making examples of decent men to tell everybody, stand back.
We'll be right back. Larry Pratt's our guest today. This is Crosstalk.
For millions of Christians around the world, following Christ can be painful, even deadly. Yet the church continues to thrive in the most difficult places. What can we learn from these oppressed believers? How do they pray for those in authority? What is their attitude toward government and political power? What does worship mean to them? Where do they find their strength and joy? These and other questions are addressed in the book, The Privilege of Persecution. Drawing on real-life stories and key scriptures, authors Carl Moeller of Open Doors and Pastor David Hegg present a surprising reality. The faith of the suffering church is vibrant. There are some remarkable lessons the Western Church can learn from the suffering church. The Privilege of Persecution is available for a donation of $16 to VCY America, which can be made by calling 1-800-729-9829. Ask for the book, The Privilege of Persecution. Again, that number, toll-free, is 1-800-729-9829. 9829.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, where today we're talking with Larry Pratt. We're talking about what's going on with this, well, the overtones and the splash and splatter of Fast and Furious, which is uncovering more and more and more as it comes crawling out from under the log. But let's roll that log over and let's get to the truth and find out what's going on. Now, we've talked about Eric Holder. We've talked about what's going on in the Democrat-led Senate, and are they going to give him a pass or not? We're not sure. We talked about the position of the White House, and we played, of course, that clip that you just heard. But and we talked about Jesus Diaz for him being thrown in the jug for restraining a smuggler. But here it is. Here's the loaded question, Larry. What can American people do? Do we sit back and just watch these things unfold, or is there some course of action in this republic which calls for public reaction? What can we do?
Well, we've set up a system, so if someone is able to use email, they can go to gunowners.org and sign up for the alerts that we put out regarding things that are going on Capitol Hill. And when Fast and Furious issues are before the Congress, as they are right now, then we alert people that this is something that's coming up, and you can make sure your representative, your senator, stays interested in promoting this, pushing this the right way. And I would say that's particularly important that the Democrats hear from people. Don't be afraid to communicate with them. They need to realize that we understand what's going on, and you can't spin this as some kind of a sting gone bad when that's not what was going on at all. And stop trying to put lipstick on a pig. It's not very becoming even after it's on. So that if folks would do that, just gunowners.org, that would be a very easy tool for them to use, because we'll have a pre-written email, and if they like what we've done, they can just fire it off, and the system knows exactly who the member of Congress is from their zip code and their actual street address, because sometimes the lines go right down the middle of the street. But we can make that easy for them to do. Now, if folks can't get onto the Internet, then if they would join Gun Owners, which is simply a $20 basic membership for a year, we'll be sending out postcards with some of the legislative mailings that we send out, and those will enable them to deal with this. And we've already had our members do that some time ago to make sure that before ISA had announced that he was going to have hearings, we had a big campaign to ask each member of Congress to support that idea of hearings and to encourage ISA to do it. Well, turns out he probably didn't need all that much encouragement, although I think he likes to know, like everybody else, that we've got his back, because he was preparing, I think, very steadfastly all that time. So anyway, people can be in the game that easily. If they can't get on the Internet, they can call us toll-free, 888-888-6-GUNS. That's 888-886, and then GUNS.
Larry, how many members do you have in Gun Owners of America already?
We're 300,000 strong, and the folks that join because they want to take part. They like the idea that we're politics 24/7.
Well, as a pilot, I get magazines about airplanes and flying and air safety and all that, and it might be a box all the time. I am also a gun owner, and if our listeners, whether you own a Winchester carbine or a Red Ryder BB gun or a 357 Magnum or an SKS or a Glock, whatever it is, the issue, you have it for a reason. And the Bible of our country, now I'm not speaking about the theological Bible, but the Bible of our country, our Constitution, gives us the rights to be armed. And if the Second Amendment is disregarded, and there are those who'd like to see all the guns confiscated.
Well, the amendment recognizes a right that the founders viewed as inherent in being a person. And so that was enshrined in our Bill of Rights because it was firearms that had enabled us to tell the king, hey, you're a rebel. you're breaking all your agreements with us. You're violating key parts of the British Constitution, namely the Magna Carta regarding trials and the Bill of Rights of 1689, which protected the right to keep and bear arms. And then when the king shuts down legislatures and puts toadies in for sheriffs and things like that, folks said, "Okay, this is it. You're no longer king over us. You're a rebel, and just get out." Well, the king, of course, wouldn't settle for that, and so we had to shoot the cops, is what it amounted to.
Oh, my, yeah.
So this is serious stuff we're talking about, and people do and should enjoy recreational shooting and hunting, but more than anything, even more than individual self-defense, that Second Amendment is a political statement that tells the federal government, you have limits. Remember that you are our creature. You are our employees.
Well, when we think of tyrannical government, which the Constitution seeks to deal with, unless there is an element of strength and force in a well-organized, meaning not some radical bunch of gun-toters, but that there is a structure that deals with tyranny.
Let me give you an example of how this is working out as we speak. One of our members, Dr. Gary Seidel, called me from Ruidoso, New Mexico, which means noisy in Spanish, and it's been kind of noisy there lately. The mayor up and decided that he was going to issue an edict banning firearms anywhere on village property. This is a ski village up around 7,000 feet, beautiful place. And they were having a hearing on his edict, and I was asked to go out there by Dr. Seidel. Well, I did that because part of what they were going to be doing at the hearing was to go in carrying openly, which is legal in New Mexico, and this Article 2, Section 6 of their Constitution prohibits any subdivision of the state from tinkering with gun control, so the mayor was clearly beyond his limits, and in fact he had asked the police chief to arrest any of us that might go in there carrying openly, and the chief said, "Mr. Mayor, I can't do that. Your edict's in violation of our Constitution." So about half of us went in armed, and Dr. Seidel, not to be outdone by anybody, went in there wearing an AR-15 over his shoulder. My
goodness.
And so the folks, the locals, took care of the legal and constitutional issues really well, and I chose an example. I said, there's a village outside of St. Louis that was able by state law, a new, at that time, concealed carry law, to pass an ordinance banning firearms in their chamber, in their village chamber. And they did. So it was a gun-free zone, of course, except for the police. There was an irate guy that charged in there one night during a meeting, killed the police, shot and killed 3 of the council members, and seriously wounded the mayor. And if I ever were to have a chance to talk to the survivors, I really would like to ask them, how's that gun ban working out for you?
Oh, boy.
It is just, it's done by feeling. The other side doesn't feel safe. In fact, the mayor said that when he's sitting there looking at all of the arms on our hips, primarily, one on a shoulder, and he said, "I just don't feel safe with all these guns around." Well, it turns out nothing happened. We all were exercising the best of gun control. Our guns never were able to jump out of our holsters, and our guns never went off and shot anybody. That was the safest room probably in New Mexico that whole day. And so subsequently, the mayor had his motion shot down 5-1. Ironically, the one guy voting, the mayor doesn't vote, one guy voting for gun control, his first name is Rifle.
Oh, my goodness. Larry.
It's actually an Hispanic guy. So this was so irritating to the mayor that he went up to Santa Fe and apparently talked to, we don't know how many different federal offices, but we do know that Dr. Seidel openly tells people, I don't pay my federal income taxes. So he got a notice that his assets were going to be encumbered if he didn't meet a certain deadline to settle up, because he just doesn't file, thus not giving them any authority. And he went and talked to the sheriff, and the sheriff said, I got your back. He talked to the police chief, who said, I got your back. There's a militia in that county of some 200 men who keep a rifle and a battle bag in their vehicles at all times and can be just about anywhere in the county in about 30 minutes. And so he went and he talked to the assessor of the village, who would actually have to be the one encumbering his assets. And he asked what she was going to do, and she said, well, I'm not sure. He said, well, I'll tell you, if you do this, if you place that lien and those encumbrances, then there's this thing in federal code called Title 42, Section 1983. That lets me sue you personally for violating my civil rights. And to put a lien or an encumbrance on my assets would be just that, and I'm going to sue you in court, and I'm going to take everything you got. And he's already done something like that with an over-the-top anger management state trooper who harasses the village, and one time arrested his son and didn't even know what charge at first he was going to place against him. Well, this guy's now working his way through defending all his assets from Dr. Seidel, and now that trooper doesn't even see the Seidels go through town. They're invisible now. Well, then in the county south, in Otero, it's a border county, there's a national forest, and some families live very close to the forest, and they wanted to cut trees and get a fire break in there. And the Forest Service said no. And they said, well, we got to. We're going to do it anyway. And the Forest Service said, well, if you do, we'll arrest you. And the sheriff of that county, which also has a militia, which would stand behind the sheriff for sure, the sheriff said, well, if you arrest them, I'm arresting you for kidnap. At that point, the Forest Service said, hey, let's settle. It's okay in that sector. And so you see an effective block of over-the-top federal intervention in a county's affairs. And the key is to have a sheriff who's thinking in terms of the 10th Amendment, who's thinking in terms of, you don't have authority to do this. Where do you get your authority to tell somebody they can't cut a tree down that might endanger their family? In fact, where do you get authority to manage national forests? I haven't seen that the last several times I've read Article 1, Section 8 of our Constitution, which lays out the specific things we've allowed the federal government to do. And then the 10th Amendment, in case that wasn't enough, with that specificity, the 10th Amendment says, and if we didn't give it to you there, then those powers are retained by the states and the people respectively. And so we saw in these two counties in New Mexico the people retaining those powers with the help of the highest law enforcement officer of the county over feds, over everybody. When the sheriff says frog, even a federale has to say, how high do you want me to jump?
We're going to go to our phones right now. Our telephone numbers are all cleared. It's open 800-733-9829. If you'd like to talk with Larry, we had a few minutes here. Coming up very quickly, 800-733-9829. Questions, whatever it is, it's time to talk. Crosstalk is the program coming your way on VCY America and affiliated stations. If you appreciate Crosstalk, call your local station. Thank them for providing the airtime. They are worthy of your support. Support your local station if you appreciate Crosstalk. We'll be right back.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. Some, quote, Christian, end quote, authors are encouraging you to enter the silence, go into a trance, and encounter Jesus, have a physical confrontation with him. Do we see in the scriptures where Christians are to indeed encounter Jesus physically, now, in the flesh? No. In 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 8, we see, whom having not seen you love, though now you do not see him, yet believing. We also see in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 6 through 8, so we are always confident knowing that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. We see in Philippians 1, 22 through 24, Paul again says, "But if I live on in the flesh, this will mean fruit from my labor. Yet what I shall choose I cannot tell, for I am hard pressed between the two, having a desire to depart and be with Christ, which is far better. Nevertheless, to remain in the flesh is more needful for you." Nowhere in the scriptures do we see that in the flesh we physically encounter Jesus. In fact, I believe they're encountering demons.
Okay, welcome back to Crosstalk, and Larry Pratt's with us on the line, and we're going to take your phone calls, make your questions very brief and to the point. We'll cover as many as we can. We have about 8.5 minutes left. We're going to go to Ron in Pennsylvania, and Ron, you're on the air with Larry Pratt. Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, Vic, thanks for putting this subject on the airwaves. 41 years ago today, I was appointed a federal agent. I'm now retired. I was an NRA member, pro-gun. Most agents are not pro-gun. And, Larry, I'm glad you have 300,000 people. I'm one of your members. And
thank you.
A lot of people are getting a free ride because we're carrying the cross for them. But my point is this. A year ago, or better, when the president of Mexico addressed Congress, he said, most of the guns that are killing people in Mexico are come from the United States. And Fast and Furious, in my view, was merely, as you said, a springboard to reimpose the Clinton assault weapon ban and the large magazine ban to no good purpose.
And also, they had gotten caught in a lie as early as April.
I was looking at some of the weapons that they had seized. I saw two. I'm a military historian. I saw two 1919 A4 30 caliber belt-fed machine guns that were still in the plastic wrap. Now, I don't see that in my local gun shop, nor the RPGs or the full automatic stuff.
Here's how the numbers get unpacked.
Go ahead,
they were claiming that 90% of Mexican crime guns turned up sourced back to the United States. That was not true. 90% of the sample that they sent to the United States for tracing did trace, actually about 87%. But they forgot to tell us here in the United States, our government didn't tell us that there was a much larger batch of all crime guns, and then the number sourced to the United States became 17%. Most of them came, that gun that you were talking about, probably came from a Mexican police or military armory or from one of 3 Central American countries that have been identified as supplying real military firearms, not just the stuff that you and I can get at a gun store.
Okay, we're going to move right ahead to Charlie and Lodi. We got a couple open lines, folks, and get in here real fast. It's 800-733-9829. 800-733-9829. Charlie in Lodi, Wisconsin. Charlie, you're on the air with Larry Pratt.
Yes, good show. Thank you, gentlemen. I'm a veteran, and I work for the federal government. I just retired, and I don't think the federal government is your friend. The agency I work for, you have to take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Of course, that involves the Second Amendment, which they deny their employees. Obviously, you cannot bring any weapons on, well, let's say, postal property.
Or a military base. Go figure that one.
Yes, that really blows me away. Green Beret, Mountain Division, Special Forces, and they have to call a civilian woman to take down a terrorist on our military base. The rest of the world is laughing at us. Thank you for your show, gentlemen.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate that. We're going to go to John in Germantown. And, John, you are on the air. Go right ahead.
Hi, Vic, John, Germantown. I got a question for him. I'm an NRA Life member, and I get a lot of information from the NRA Political Action Wing, the ILA. And I'm wondering if they and the gun owners of America work together on some of these issues, or are they basically going their own separate ways? Because I know there is controversy as to what some things the NRA are doing.
Well, we're certainly of one mind on Fast and Furious. We did part ways with the NRA when they were supporting the official name of a bill back in 2007 was the NICS Improvement Act. We named it the Veterans Disarmament Act. What was happening was that the bill required that anybody that had a medical diagnosis that might indicate they were a danger to self or others had to lose their Second Amendment rights. And we said, wait a minute, this is America. You have due process here. A doctor's opinion is not the same as a court decision following probably a jury's deliberation, different experts testifying one way or the other. None of that was available. They're just making these gross assumptions, and now some 150,000 veterans have been disarmed, and now that Obamacare has required all medical records to be accessible for drones in Washington to paw through, there are going to be a lot more people losing their right to keep and bear arms when, here's one scenario. Teenager talking stupid about suicide is taken to the psychiatrist. 20 years later, goes to buy a gun at a store and is turned down because of that diagnosis at the time, depressive behavior or whatever, suicidal thought. Oh, we're not going to sell you a gun. Well, it's 20 years later. Maybe the person has started a business, has a family. I don't really think it makes any sense, and it certainly didn't pass muster in a court to deprive that person of their right to keep and bear arms. The NRA supported that, and it's now law.
I'm a veteran, so that's very interesting. I'm glad I know that. Thank you very much.
John, thank you for calling from Germantown, Wisconsin. Well, we're coming down the home stretch with about a minute and 20 seconds left. So, Larry, I'm going to give you the minute.
Well, I appreciate so much you're putting some light on this very important topic. Obviously, when we hear I'm from the government and I'm here to help you, that's not even funny anymore. That's a dangerous thing. You don't want the government anywhere near you. These guys are dangerous. So, again, I'd urge people, go to gunowners.org if you can and sign up for our email alerts. They're free. And if you can't get on the Internet, then you can call and get information about Gun Owners of America at 888-886-GUNS. That's 888-886, and then GUNS. I think if we keep the heat on using the postcards that we provide people, the email, you're giving out the phone numbers, that adds up. We've had staffers up on the Hill whose bosses maybe were a little flaky, and the staffer was more solid, saying, those emails really help. Keep them coming.
Oh, that's great. Larry, it's always great to have you, and I want to thank you for being with us today. Have a great day.
And you too, Vic. Thank you.
Folks, just about 30 seconds remaining, and just on the side here, totally different issue coming up next Sunday night. It's my privilege to be among friends and kinfolk up there, a long ways away from here, Cook, Minnesota. We're having a big Sunday night sing at the First Baptist Church in Cook, Minnesota. It starts at 6 p.m. If you want more information, you can call the church there about how to get there or what. It's 218-666-5979. 218-666-5979. Hope to meet many of you up there in the North Country. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the Internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. Or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.